The U's left it late in Fleetwood, but it was Gibbo to the rescue to make it 11 games unbeaten and leave us just 2 points off second. We've got a stunning free kick, a few questionable refereeing decisions, and some even more questionable Dom ball fist bumps to discuss on today's Under the Abbey stand. Welcome along. It might be bleak mid-January, but someone's still got to show up and do the pod. And 3 points makes it all the sweeter, doesn't it, Tom?
9 minutes?
9 minutes.
Are you mad? Oh God! Yeah,
that was the most remarkable moment of the game for sure. Not to skip to the end before we've done the rest of it, but I could not believe my eyes.
Like genuinely, we were watching it. Like genuinely questioning, like, has he actually held us up like upside down? Like, should it be 6?
You know, the weird thing is though, that even 6 I thought would have been a bit long. Like, even 6 I'd have raised my eyebrows at. Yeah,
anyway, you join us as we start recording. We're just seeing out the remaining couple of seconds of that stoppage time, which is somehow still going on. But yeah, we go again. Absolute madness, man.
I know. Absolutely crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. It's also one of those where you don't want to. I'm not just saying it because we were the ones seeing out a lead, but I honestly think if we were chasing a lead, I'd have gone 9 minutes. Where have you got 9 minutes from? Yeah, I mean, that's starting at the end of the game. But 2-1 win up at Fleetwood. Neither of us made it all the way up this year. But thoughts on the game overall, Tom? It feels like a pretty big 3 points to me.
Yeah, definitely a big 3 points. Thought first half we were just miles better than the opposition. And that's been the case on a few, in a few of the games on the sort of recent run, hasn't it, really, where you've just kind of looked at who we're playing and what we've got available to us, and you just think we're just streets ahead of the team that we're playing, and that's kind of how it panned out in the first half. I think I suppose there's kind of always the two sides to it. Is obviously our performance and what are we doing to impact the game, but I do think Fleetwood sat off quite a lot. Harris mentioned it in his post-match interview about he felt they were there sort of just to do sort of containment really in the first half. And I think that's exactly right. I was quite disappointed by them really. The home side. I get that we're coming into town as kind of a team on form and pushing up to the high parts of the table, but even so, like, you'd expect a bit more from them. So that's disappointing. And we used it pretty well really. Obviously saw a lot of the ball. Part of me thought that maybe is a kind of tactical thing. A lot of the run that we've had has been built on our structure out of possession really, and I did wonder how much of it from Fleetwood's perspective was kind of give them the ball, let's see what they can do, and the answer was actually we looked okay with it. And yeah, I mean, at half time, like, we were obviously chatting in the group and whatnot, and it did have the feeling of like, have we missed a bit of an opportunity there? Because it did feel like we're all over them. Obviously, we get our goal, which of course we'll talk about, but you felt like that was a half of football which deserved a 2-goal lead at least. And if you get that, having said what I've just said about our structure and obviously how difficult we are basically to break down, you're basically almost counting the points that you collected that day, I suppose, and moving on to the next one. Second half was a struggle for me. And I guess this is what makes it a big result. And the cliche is if you win when you're not at your best, that's a sign of a good team, I suppose. But you don't want to be not at your best too often, I suppose. And we nearly chucked it away, really. Having been so dominant and so clearly the better side, we come out of it with relief, really, having won the game. And that's a bit of a concern, I think, because I do think that, again, going back to Harris's post-match interview, he mentioned about how at 1-1 we looked to really kind of go on and win the game. I felt at 1-0 we managed the game almost totally differently, and we were actually too negative, really. I think the sub that really killed it for me was Knight going off and Ball coming on. That's not really to say that Ball necessarily played poorly, but it just invited so much of the emphasis back onto Fleetwood. And I'm not saying that they were all over us or really kind of creating chances at will, but they did wrestle back a bit of control of the game, and obviously they get the equaliser, and obviously thankfully we get the winner. But there's a very believable alternate universe where we're sort of walking away going, how on earth have we dropped points there? But we didn't. So, it is relief, and it is a big 3 points. And, the positives are we've again shown ourselves to be a lot better than the teams in the sort of second part of the table. But there's still things to work on and still things to improve, which is I guess you can kind of frame it as a good thing, really, because if we're doing this well and we're not quite at our peak, then you have to be confident that if we can hit our peak and can sustain it, we'll be well in with a shout of what we want to achieve, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I mentioned in the intro, they're only 2 points off second now. So a big thing about yesterday in terms of it being a big 3 points, I think, is probably the context of the league. I'm pretty sure Swindon are the only side in the top seven who lost. You might even be able to extend that down to eighth and ninth as well. I'm pretty sure almost everyone had a brilliant day in the top half. It was a very top half teams win, bottom half teams lose type of day in the league. Apart from I think Bromley got a point at Chesterfield, but still, the point I was going to make about Fleetwood as well, which is funny, just right in the running order for this show, I kind of changed my mind on this a little bit. I was going to come into this show and be really quite positive about it being quite a tough place to go. Coming out with 3 points is a bit more impressive than it seems. They're a team that only lost twice at home in the league before yesterday. But then I went and watched Nappers' video post-match, the sort of his vlog, friend of the pod who you spoke to for the preview show. He was so critical of them. He thought we should have won it by 4 or 5. A lot of the comments of Fleetwood fans completely agreeing. It's like their angle is very much they were by far, I guess your reading of the first half extended into the second. They didn't think they had enough to break us down. They got this one moment from a penalty. I guess they're always in the game at 1-0 down, but they never showed enough to really deserve to take anything from the game. And then I kind of went and looked at like who Fleetwood have played at home to sort of see how impressive that only lost 2 games at home is. And they've really not played anyone that good at home. The teams they've beaten are teams like Shrewsbury, Harrogate, Accrington, Gillingham and Cole are like the 2 biggest teams or like best placed teams that they've beaten at home. So they're not exactly pulling up trees against any of the better sides at home. So I kind of flipped my opinion on it a little bit. And while I do think it shows there's definite character to go and make sure you win a game like that and don't slip up, the overall feeling, I agree with you, as you just said there, is probably relief for me. And I guess you can look at that relief in 2 different ways, right? You can look at the relief as like, were we not good enough and is it something to worry about? Or is it relief that like, well, what we have shown is a lot of character and personality to make sure that we don't slip up, if that makes sense, as 2 different ways of looking at relief.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think you'd probably be happy to accept that kind of first, understanding of it if we were a team that were challenging for the playoffs, and that was the ambition, to challenge to get into the top 7. But the distinction is that now we're quite evidently a team that should have better or higher ambitions than that, and that's realistic automatic promotion. And because I think our level is basically a lot higher than Fleetwood's, really we should be looking at going there and winning relatively comfortably. And I thought they would. Like I said, mentioned earlier on, I was pretty disappointed with them. I thought they were really poor.
Yeah, I did too.
First half, and I just felt that the reason I was kind of disappointed with our own second half performance was just kind of, I didn't feel there was any part of the game that we weren't impacting, if that makes sense. So when we were playing well and we were on top, a lot of that was controlled by us and because we were playing well. But when we let Fleetwood back into it a little bit, that was because we weren't playing so well, if that makes sense, rather than playing against a team who were putting it on us and really finding ways to get at us. So yeah, I think we're starting to see like the league kind of breaks down into those 3 sections, doesn't it? And I think the sort of top of those 3 sections is the one that we're very much in, which is probably 5 or 6 teams really going for the top 3. Obviously Bromley a little way clear at the top, but we'll keep them in that. Then probably between like 7th or 8th and like 19th or something. These teams who would probably see like a realistic chance of getting in the top 7, and that's just the sort of nature of League Two, and Fleetwood are kind of very much in that. And I just think there's between each of them there's quite a distinction in quality, really. So yeah, it's a good win, but as you say, I think it's one where like Colchester away at the start of the season, for example, that's very much your first thought, isn't it? That's very much like massive 3 points, really tough place to go, all that sort of stuff. This is kind of a little bit less than that, but you still get the same amount of points on the board, I guess. It's just how you dissect it.
And there's still a lot to be said for getting it done in the situation, because I mean, the other thing, sorry, to mention with Fleetwood is they'd also lost Ryan Graydon, and I think Jordan Davis is out injured. They've got loads of injury problems, no goals in the side really at the moment. But so it's one of those where like getting the job done was probably the minimum expectation, I think. And I think if we were sat here with a point, it wouldn't be, my first question wouldn't have been 1 gained or 2 dropped. We know it would have been 2 dropped. But the fact that we didn't drop 2 points says a lot about the character of this side and winning in different sort of ways. So I don't want it to sound too negative. I just think that was kind of minimum expectation, I think, going and beating that Fleetwood side based on what we saw. Let's break it down. I mean, you summarised the game as a whole really nicely there. Early passages, I think something to discuss is just the amount of possession we had and how good we looked with possession. I can't, off the top of my head, remember a passage of a game, definitely not a start of a game, where we imposed ourselves so well with the ball. We spoke about Neil Harris sides a lot earlier in the season. This isn't how I expected a Neil Harris side to look. It's three at the back, five at the back, three at the back. I'm going to call it free because Bennett was playing so high up, especially in the first half, that I'm pretty sure it was a straight up free. Playing the ball really nicely on the floor. Knight getting involved a lot. Kai looking really bright. This isn't what I expected us to look like. You're absolutely right in saying that I think Fleetwood's game plan was to try and contain us and give us the ball and see what we could do with it. But how impressive for us to look like we have a threat when that's the challenge posed to us.
Yeah, big time. I think we've talked about Neil Harris a lot, right? And I think that's probably, we're just seeing the benefit of having a manager for this level who is just, just really good, basically.
Yeah.
I think mentioned it a couple of times, sort of, weeks gone by, but I think looking as good and as solid as we do with three or five or sort of however you want to frame it is more impressive because we know for a fact it's not what Neil Harris wants. So when you say that it's a surprise to see it, is I was looking like this, I guess, just in terms of the shape of the team. That's probably as much a surprise to him as it is to anybody else, because I imagine when he's building the team over the summer, it was very much with four at the back in mind, but actually he's found a way to make it click with something different. So that's good. And yeah, being on possession or being in possession of the ball is something that hasn't always suited us, I think. Probably even back to when we were doing okay in League One, like we always would see ourselves, the kind of little old Cambridge thing of like we don't want to have much of the ball, we want to kind of keep the games kind of gritty and tight and kind of everything else. But
it's never really been in our DNA as a club, not to go too far with it, but like all our successful sides, I don't think they're defined necessarily by possession football, are they?
No, definitely not. I mean, I guess the difference is now that you've got players that you want to have the ball. And that's not to say that, teams gone by haven't had that, but you look at like Ben Knight, Sally Kai, just as two examples, Brophy, even obviously a really good ball carrier. Like you do want these guys on the ball and actually like impacting the game. And I felt probably on Saturday at Fleetwood, it's probably one of the first times we've really used that amount of possession really effectively. That famous first half against Harrogate was probably the other, where we created chances at will, basically. We at times I felt we were trying maybe a little bit too hard, really. It was quite evident that they were trying to move the ball really quickly, particularly around the box, and Kai and Ben Knight looked to link up a lot, but it wasn't quite coming off. So yeah, like and that's probably partly why we weren't able to turn that one goal lead into two and three and maybe more. But yeah, I mean, look, we had probably 73% of the ball, something like that. In the first half, we just totally dominated.
63% of it, and they only had two shots in the first half. The only one on target being from about 35 yards out, which I think dribbled into Eastwood's hand. So also shut them out entirely at the other end. Yeah, it's so true with the possession. And the point that I wrote down was that it felt like, if you want to talk about moving through the thirds and stuff, we'd move into their final third really nicely. And it was just that last thing that wasn't coming off, wasn't it? A lot of little flicks and little moves, like little anticipations that would just been like overhit or underhit, but it just felt like we were a constant threat. And then obviously if we go and make it 1-0 from a free kick, which deserves its own show, really. Goal of the season so far, Tom? I was trying to think of some others. It might be my favourite, specifically because a free kick hitting the underside, bouncing, and then hitting the roof of the net. That's a thing of absolute beauty.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say. I mean, if it had flown into the top corner, I'm not saying we'd be sat here
terrible tapping,
saying it's not good. But God, it makes it look so much better when it hits the underside of the bar and goes in like that. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Goal of the season, it probably is so far. We've actually scored some good goals, to be fair. Like Kai scored a great goal against Birmingham last week.
The one at MK as well.
Yeah. We just robbed that Ben Knight chance against Walsall. I'm still not really over that. I mean, it's nearly more than 2 weeks ago now. But yeah, I mean, the fact there's a debate about this does make me quite sad. The fact there's even a discussion on what goal of the season is. But yeah, it probably is so far. And look, I mean, he's a player of that sort of quality, isn't he? I think I actually think the drop down to League Two will serve him pretty well just longer term, and that's not saying that he's looking good because he's playing against weaker opposition. Obviously, he is playing against weaker opposition, but I just think the opportunity to have a bit more freedom and just be able to like get at players a little bit more at this level just really suits him. And if we do find ourselves back in League One next season, I think he'll be a much better player for that as well. Because I feel like in League One, he flattered to deceive at times, sort of drifted in and out of games, and now like if he's on the pitch, like you just have the impression he's going to do something. Like the way that he just sort of, and this is going away from the free kick a little bit, but the way that he can just sort of like snap in an instant and just go past the defender, like does it quite often, is just so good. And like you can tell defenders at this level just can't really cope with that. I think he's our outright top goal scorer now as well, I think.
On four, is it?
Yeah, which is quite depressing.
Yeah. 4 in 25, bud.
Yeah, but like in all competitions as well. What is it, 7 or 8 now?
Yeah.
Which is good stuff. And yeah, I mean the free kick is just brilliant. Yeah,
It's superb,
Yeah.
isn't it? He's becoming such a difference maker as well, I think, is the thing. I mean, someone in our chat used the phrase cheat code at this level, and I think you're right in what you just said about the drop down to League Two really helping him getting the season under his belt. Harris obviously loves him as well. Anytime he speaks about him, he's so glowing of him, and he's really like making huge impacts now. The other moment with SK that I wanted to talk about, I mean, there's quite a few in the first half, actually. I don't know, you can pick up on whichever of these, but there's the penalty shout before the free kick, which looked to me pretty stonewall. Harris called it stonewall. I was really surprised it wasn't given. He's through on goal. I'm not sure why he'd go down when he's trying to get a shot away if he's not actually been impeded. Then there's a chance just after after we score, and like 5 minutes after that. Is it one of those, Tom, where you think there's still a little bit to come with him in terms of being clinical? Is that being way too harsh, or is it just you see him getting in these positions, he's going to end up contributing enough, as we have seen in recent weeks?
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess that's kind of the frustration, isn't it, with any player like that, because you feel like they've got so much of the game already that if they could just have that little bit extra, then it would elevate him to a totally different level. He's 30 now, so arguably, if he was going to find that ability to become like a clinical finisher as well, he might have already done it. So it might not be something that we see, but who knows? Yeah, I think he had a chance in the second half as well, didn't he? Where like he tried to get a shot away, but for me, he should have just like head down, get around the keeper, get around the defender, and just slot it into an empty net. But yeah, real difference maker. I mean, the penalty. Yeah, I mean, the ref had an interesting afternoon. Probably leave it at that because we won.
He didn't give a free kick, in the first 20 minutes of the game, like at all. That's what Jono and Doug were saying on commentary. Like nothing at all.
Yeah, ref was a bit of a tool, really. But you get through it. But yeah, look, I mean, again, it feels bad being anything even close to critical of Sully Kaikai at the moment. He's just stuck on at the top banjo, and he's been he's probably been our standout player, really. Probably certainly the sort of latter part of this run that we've been on. Obviously, equaliser at MK, scores against Accrington. Obviously, the standout player against Birmingham from our side, I suppose, and obviously the difference maker there to try and get us back in the game. And then Saturday, obviously, just a brilliant piece of skill. Liked in James Gibbons' post-match interview as well. I mentioned that he'd been doing it on the training ground as well. Always nice to see that sort of stuff pay off, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. The other thing with SK as well is actually his versatility a little bit. I mean, you think compare his first half and second half. First half in that sort of three at the back formation, he's playing much more centrally in behind Apare, trying to make those runs beyond him. And then second half, he goes and plays this kind of touchline hugging winger, and we see him in the second half cut inside and have a few good digs from that sort of position, which we know is, well, there's one which is almost a carbon copy of that goal at MK, really. So yeah, he's really becoming quite something this season, isn't he? Rest of the first half, and we talked about a few of those chances that Kaikai's involved in, the penalty, that chance he has after the goal. Apare has a chance as well, which SK sets up for him, which I don't really think enough's been made of, because from the commentary, Doug and Jono were saying that Harris had his head in his hands at Apare's one. Do you know the one where SK kind of drills it across, and it's a bit of an instinctive one, but Apare doesn't get it anywhere near goal. It's a really poor finish, to be honest, because he's like edge of the 6-yard box. You really want your number 9 to be able to, at the very least, get that on target. And I think Harris's reaction probably says a lot as an ex number 9. But without digging out Apare himself in for that one individual moment, For me, the biggest, most frustrating thing about the game, if there's anything to pick on, is the lack of clinical touch in the first half. Because I think we should have been out of sight by half time. To be honest, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say we should have been 3-0 up by half time and the game's done. We've got to be a bit more ruthless taking our chances, haven't we? And we'll talk about the transfer window at the end of the pod, but we have got to get a bit of a ruthless streak in us, haven't we, to not ensure we're dropping points against the likes of Fleetwood.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting how our kind of issues, if you like, have sort of moved through the team over the season. Like, I think it took a while for us to land on a preferred system at the back, to really kind of reduce the amount of chances that we're conceding against us, and then it was all about like what's the pairing in centre mid, and obviously we seem to have landed on one which is nice in Pelly and with George Hoddle. The big glaring thing all season has been like what do we do up front? Because I think we felt we were a touch light there really from like the start of the season, like from the get go. Then it started dropping like flies. We lose Lavery. We lost Apre for part of the season. CUFC obviously did a good job. He gets injured.
Kachunga doesn't even make squads anymore. Sorry to interrupt, but he's not even making matchday squads anymore.
Yeah, didn't notice that actually. But,
that's a couple in a row now.
I suppose there's a joke in there somewhere about not noticing when he has made the matchday squad as well. But, that's for another time. I mean, look, this has been, and this is probably the difference about how much attention I pay when I'm at games compared to when I'm not actually at the game but watching the game from home. Noticed it really clearly at Gillingham as well. Like the ball's just not sticking up front enough for me.
Exactly the note I've written down. That's exactly what.
I think we just lack a proper presence up front. It is basically the way what it boils down to. And I know Matt Cass will probably be sat at home listening, screaming Ryan Loft somewhere.
He's always screaming Ryan Loft in the middle of a night terror. He wakes up.
there are no questions I could possibly ask you for which the answer would be Ryan Loft. So we can strike a big line through that for now. But yeah, for sure, I think the next couple of weeks in the market are quite important for this. Really, I've not been that impressed with Lavery even since he's come back into the side. And realistically, he is kind of one of those players I think anyway, where he certainly got some quality about him, and he'll certainly impact games. In sort of general play, but he feels to me like one of those players like you have him on the pitch because at some point he'll pop up with a goal rather than necessarily for his all-round play, which can be good, but don't think he's impacted much there. Obviously Kwasi's still a little way off, and I just think like, again, like we'll I guess talk about the market in more detail, but I think the game at Fleetwood is just case in point. And do you know what? They actually made a really good point on the commentary about this. I think our performance has recently been quite a good advert. Like if you're a centre forward looking for a new club, I think if you look at that Fleetwood game and you think I could get some goals in this team. Like I'm still not sure we're like we're not creating several tap-ins for strikers yet, but if you're a decent centre forward and you can get yourself on the end of things, like there's a team there that you can come in and score second half of the season 8-10 goals. And you're right, like that was the frustration I think on Saturday was just. That just wasn't there. And if it was, like, you avoid so much of the frustration, you avoid so much of the nerves going into the ridiculous amount of stoppage time that we ended up playing and stuff. Because the game's just outside after probably about 40 minutes or not even half time.
Yeah. And it's one of those that like, it didn't cost us yesterday, but if the trend keeps continuing, it just will cost us at some point. That's just the way it's going to go. So we've got to get it right in January for sure. I was desperate to see Lavery start, to be honest. I think you're spot on in everything you just say. And part of the reason I said it on the previous show that I wanted Lavery to start was, aside from sort of having the safety net of if he does break down 60 minutes in, you've got 2 weeks of January to go and fix it. It was more for me also to play him into a bit of form, because you're spot on every time he's come off the bench. It doesn't look like he's quite at the pace of a game. I don't want to say it at all that he's not like pulling out of challenges because he's got or not quite giving 100% because he's got an injury on his head. I don't think it's that at all. I think he's just a little bit out of touch. But for me, I think like the answer there is start him, and like don't be scared to start your best striker at a tough place, because if you can't rely on him, then we should be getting a striker in way sooner than this in January, in my opinion, if he's not ready to go. I mean, it's a month now since he's come back from injury, that Accrington game. So it seems like a decent amount of time to start a football match, don't you think? Yeah,
I would agree with that. I'd be interested to know what the reason is for continuing with Apre against Lavery. And obviously, having said what I've just said about Lavery, I think what you've said there does make sense about, if you start from the beginning, maybe he gives himself a bit of an opportunity to actually get to the pace of the game, and like, seeing what an effective player he can be if he does have that. And frankly, I don't think Apre is offering a load at the moment. So yeah, that's maybe an answer in the short term, but I suppose the longer term solution is something else entirely, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing, just to finish that point, is on Apare. I think as a striker, I'm not saying his strengths for me are kind of off the ball. He's a very off the ball striker. He's the sort of striker I think you want to bring on if you're like defending a 1-goal lead, because he chases everything down. He kind of makes something out of nothing, but his like instinctive finishing, his maybe like quality, the way he can make it stick. He's not a target man. He's that kind of somewhere in between as a striker. So I kind of think he's a striker you want to bring on when Lavery's tired, 20 minutes to go, and you're 2-3-0 up or something. Anyway, that isn't what happened, but there is a longer term solution which we can touch on at the end of the pod. Second half, we said it at half time, they were going to come out with a bit more about them. Any side at this level would have to, considering how poorly they played first half. It's fair to say I don't think we imposed ourselves on the game in the same way at the start of the second half that we did at the start of the first. I'll give you the numbers in terms of shots, Tom. This actually kind of surprised me. We didn't have a shot until the 63rd minute of the second half, despite I think a fair bit of dominance, probably not as incisive, and they had a bit more about them for sure. That was exactly the moment the first sub was made, which I'm going to ask you about in a second. Then the 4 other shots we had in the second half were in the space of 6 minutes, which culminated in Gibbons scoring. So it really seems like a second half where we changed gears a few times, and maybe in the wrong direction at some point, which I think is a point you're going to make. Interesting sub, Knight off for Ball, and then Purrington for Bennett. Thoughts on those? Interesting note as well on Bennett going off. Got a lot of hate in the group chat because we thought Gibbons should have gone off, and we were made to look like absolute pricks a moment later. But what do you make to the subs and kind of how it impacted the flow of the second half?
Yeah, this was where I think the game didn't get away from us because we won it. But and what you said there again, like, it is exactly right. And it's something I mentioned in the sort of first part of our discussion as well, which was I didn't feel there was any moment in the game where the changes in emphasis weren't because of us. Like Fleetwood come out with a bit more. Obviously, they probably had a bit of a rocket, during half time, and they obviously come out with a little, trying to show basically a bit more than what they did in the first half. I get that, and that's always going to happen. But really, I think the change in emphasis was on that sub where Knight goes off and Ball comes on. It just gave them, it just almost moved us back, probably about 5 or 10 yards. And look, we weren't playing brilliantly before that. I'm not trying to make out that this was like a night and day thing. Night and day, that's great.
Night and Ball.
Yeah. But like, I felt that the second half was slowly starting to resemble the first half a little bit more when we made that sub. I think sort of between about 45 and 60. It wasn't looking very good. It was, they were sort of getting in and around our box probably too much. And then probably for the 5 minutes between that and the sub happening, I just felt we were starting to wrestle back a little bit more in the game. I think that's when we had the chance for Kai. From the throw where he sort of ends up through on goal and as I mentioned, I think should have rounded the keeper and the defender and just slotted it in rather than taking the shot early. And then like the emphasis did just shift. Like, we were sloppy. I think what we lost as well was a bit of shape, because at that point you've got 3 midfielders on the pitch who are probably trying to occupy quite a similar part of the pitch.
He did also go to 4 at the back, it's worth mentioning, which was kind of, at the time, I was not disagreeing with you, but I was trying to sort of keep an open mind, because I thought what he was trying to do was take a defender off and push us further up the pitch, right? Because I think he went to Gibbons, Jobe, Watts, Bennett at the back, Ball and Hoddle, and then pushed Pelly further forward with Brophy and Kaikai either side, is how I was reading it. But I do think you're right in that the change in formation, maybe it's something about taking 5 minutes to get used to it. The 3 midfielders taking up similar positions. You're right. Something changed. It didn't work, what he was trying.
Well, the moment you're talking about when Purrington comes on is after they've equalised, right? So that's what Harris is saying in his post match as well, that when the game's level, we went for it a little bit more and we were more positive, and then we had that run of shots, like you're saying, which culminates with the equaliser. But for me, it was more the management of the game at 1-0, which I kind of took a bit more issue with, because I don't think there's any, like, frankly, we don't need to pay Fleetwood that much respect. Like, I don't think the game has shifted that much that we need to try and shut it out, which is what I sort of felt it kind of was looking like. And I think a sub like that, just, the optics of it are you bring off an attacking midfielder for a more defensive one. It suggests that you're just trying to manage the game in that way. Whereas then, like, probably, the way that the game changed when we made the next set of subs with Purrington coming on, Lavery coming on, probably is proof of that. The fact that, we make a sub and then like 5 minutes later we end up scoring the winner, or make two subs and end up scoring the winner because we change the shape of the team and stuff like that. So the game kind of happened at our will, or sort of how we wanted it to go,
Yeah.
but just not always positively.
I think, yeah, no, I know, I see what you're saying, and I think, I guess you're absolutely right that it's happening at our will, and probably the biggest positive you can take from it is that Harris. We've spoken about adaptability a lot with Harris, haven't we, this season? And I think you saw it in the space of about 20, 30 minutes here. Because you're right, he's probably trying to change. He's trying to change something in the game. Let's not pick up the exact point on ball or night, but he's trying to change something in the game because clearly we've lost like our dominance or our control that we had in the first half. But the way he then reacts to us going them equalising. He says it in his post match. He says, I was wondering whether to stick or twist. Do I stick and think this is a good point away from home, or do I twist? And he says something like, I looked behind me and I thought, no, we've got better quality than them. And he twists. And that's when he brings Lavery on alongside Apare up top. And that's when we have that run of 6 shots. Pelly also has that just after we score the second. Pelly has that. He takes that heavy touch when he's breaking. It's only like a couple of minutes after we score, which is another big opening. And I think that point about it happening at our will is probably a really good summary, to think that we've got enough about us. We've got a good enough manager who can read a game and adapt to anything that's happening in the game. A lot of it maybe, a mistake he's made in that, you're right, maybe that ball sub wasn't the right moment, maybe it wasn't the right sub, but to be able to fix it so quickly, I think shows a huge strength. Does it worry you though that it maybe took us conceding to really give the game a go again? Am I reading that a bit too directly? Because it's straight after they equalised that we went and had that sort of flurry of shots and sort of started creating the scoring opportunities again.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah, like possibly. I do want to make it clear that, we didn't, the emphasis didn't shift like to the extent that Fleetwood were like battering the door down. Like they didn't create loads against us still, and obviously their goal eventually comes from a penalty that is, I guess kind of out of nothing really. So I don't want to say that, we totally changed it like that, but I just felt the emphasis of the game could have remained more positive, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think look, when you equal when they equalise, there's probably a bit of it from like the players as well. I think like we can't drop points here. Like we've been so much better. Like maybe it's a bit of a reality check, and probably because we've been so good over the last 10, 11 weeks, we just like not really had that. Everything's kind of everything we touch has turned to gold really for the most part. Whereas that felt like a real like, if we come out of this with drop points, it's gonna be a real farce basically. So yeah, like a bit of a concern, but I suppose that you can always flip these things on their head, and with this you can just say, look, we found a way. And I suppose the one thing that you always do at these points in the season when you think things are starting to go well and you've got your eyes on the sort of top spots in the league, you do start making comparisons with similar seasons in the past. And if I had to make a real comparison, I'd maybe compare it to that Carlisle away game in the lockdown year.
Yeah.
That was a game that had a real similar feeling to it, where we were just miles better than the team that we were playing. And obviously it's a long while ago now, so I can't remember the exact components of it. Basically, we went ahead. We were looking much better. They equalised out of nowhere, and we were like, fucking hell, we're going to drop points here. That's massive, and how have we dropped points against poor opposition? And then you just find a way. You find a way. And that can be like a really positive trait.
Yeah.
I hope I keep seeing it, but hopefully like you just want to see us just continue with that sort of dominance. But again, like I do realise that I'm sat here asking for us to just dominate 90 minutes of football matches every week, and that might be asking a little bit much. But
actually, I don't think that is what you're asking. I think they are dominating 90 minutes of football matches most weeks, and you're just saying, well, make it count. You're asking for them to make it count. And I think a lot of what we discuss, and probably the biggest positive, is there's clearly a mentality in this squad. You're absolutely right there. That it's probably even the players going, well, hang on, we're not dropping points here. That's not what's happening. This isn't the team that we drop points against. And we find a way. And the person who finds a way is James Gibbons. We've mentioned loads of times over recent pods how one of the biggest strengths or positives of this recent run, 11 games now unbeaten, is the contributions from all over the pitch. We've mentioned Gibbons before, opening and scoring against Accrington, played brilliantly at Chesterfield as well, to name a couple. But says so much about a good side when we spread around the sort of responsibility of not saving us from positions, but contributing in meaningful moments when the team needs it. And Gibbons is just the epitome of that, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, just to compare it back to the promotion season and the lockdown, we had exactly the same thing there, where different people are popping up at different moments, and Gibbons' acting was really good, and the fact that he's getting forward so much, I think, is really good as well. I think that shows real intent as well from us. I know this one's a bit different because it's from a set piece, but he mentioned as well in his post match that he's given a bit of freedom at set pieces, which is good. A free James Gibbons is always good to see. And it's a nice finish as well. It's a really nice
A
finish.
great finish. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Swept it home.
Left
Swept
foot.
it home.
Lovely. Yeah, swept at home. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, really nice. Um, do you the thing with Gibbons is it one of those that when Bennett went off instead of him, did you raise your eyebrows? Be honest.
I would say it lifted slightly.
A twitch.
On the Carlo Ancelotti scale, I'm probably about a 3 out of 10. I'd say.
Okay. Well, he made us all look a bit silly because a few of us in the chat were like, "Why isn't he taking Gibbons off? Why isn't he leaving Bennett
To be
off?"
fair, I think it wouldn't have been more. It would have been more of a why has Bennett gone off rather than
Yeah, why has
Gibbons
Gibbons stayed on?
sort
Yeah,
of thing.
correct. That was it exactly.
But yeah, for sure. Do you know what? Like James Gibbons is probably a player that we've been probably a bit too dismissive of, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think, like, obviously in League One he's up against it, and he came into a team which wasn't doing so well and did pretty well in that sort of. Well, I think he joined in January, didn't he? The January that Harris came in for the first time, and did okay in that season, and then probably did okay really last season, but was in an absolute shit show of a team really for the most part. And I think when we came down, we were like, oh, well, maybe not first choice, but good to have around the place. And I think he captained the team on Saturday, and obviously
Yeah.
scores the winner, like huge contributions, and probably just not talked about enough, really. And yeah, like when he talks about Kai's versatility there, but it's the same for Gibbons.
Big
He's
time.
played right back, left back, centre back. Again,
Because he did all three in this game.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
He did all three in the second half.
Centre forward. There you go.
Centre forward. Yeah, exactly.
Get on the end of things. On the Liam Hughes scale, I think he's on 3 out of 11 at the moment. But yeah, long will that continue.
Shall we discuss how many penalties we're giving away quickly? Slight worry. 3 and 4
Yeah, I did
now.
think this. I did think this because we kind of talked about it as a positive. I think after the who did Jake used to save the penalty against? Walsall.
Also, yeah. Well, technically Gillingham as well.
Yeah. But like we talked about it as kind of more of a positive. Like the only chances we're giving away from penalties, really, and now it's like we're
still giving away penalties.
a lot of chances. Yeah, like it's not okay just to give away chances from penalties. Like that's not fine. The point is, if they're the only chances you're giving away, you're doing something right at the back. But yeah, we are giving away a lot. They're all like quite similar as well. They're all just kind of like sort of clumsy legs out, and I loved it. I loved it in Neil Harris's post-match interview. Like, the way sometimes football managers, you feel like they're watching a different game, they're seeing games in a different way to how you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Harris flips it into a great learning curve.
That's exactly brilliant from Mams. What?
Yeah, well, hopefully no more of those learning curves needed. But I'm not sure what the learning curve is. Like, don't scythe down an attacker in the box. Yeah. There you go.
It was about Stonewall as pens get, isn't it?
I think so.
It was pretty. There was no complaints. I mean, actually, Bull was remonstrating quite heavily, but I think it's one of them. Just let it go, Tom. I think that's pretty. If they don't get given, not a lot gets given. 9 minutes at a time. Should we talk about that again? What is that about? I can't believe where he's got that from. Only one moment in that 9 really to discuss, which is the goal mouth scramble, where Harris mentions it again in his post match. Eastwood just took his eye off the ball, which he kind of said with a smile, and I was like, I wouldn't, Neil, don't laugh about that, Neil. It's not. You wouldn't be laughing if that ends up with a Fleetwood equaliser. But
yeah, that was proper heart and mouth stuff. That wasn't great. Yeah, I have not the foggiest idea where 9 minutes came from. Gibbons said that he asked the ref after the game where it came from, and apparently it's because the game slowed down a bit in the second half.
What?
I don't even know what that means. Like, time still takes the same amount of time.
Yeah.
That didn't change.
I honestly can't believe. And then he played like another minute or two after that as well. I think it's like
Yeah, mate. I've got absolutely no idea because I mean, look, there were some subs. There was a couple. There was a couple of goals, but not loads other than that. I'd say. I like genuinely. I'm not I'm not convinced that it wasn't just a case of the board was upside down. I'm genuinely not convinced of that. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah,
think I think there's a chance that could be the case. That's the most rational explanation I've got. That might be the most notable added time since Wembley.
yeah. Which was what was that? What was it at Wembley?
That went into the 100th minute as well. Not
Yeah, it
quite as
did.
Fleetwood way, arguably not quite as momentous, but
No,
yeah.
I know a big 2-1 win though. Um, I can imagine though, like Harris must have gone to the fourth official. Like it must have been something out of a World War Two drama. Nine,
You know
nine.
what? There's a couple of there's a few things that you really pick up when you watch the game at home compared to being there. And one of them is like, uh, there is no money on this planet that could convince me to be a fourth official
No,
in a
oh
League
my
Two final.
God.
There was a brilliant bit right before this, before the second half kicked off, when the cameras panned back to the game. They were like, the Fleetwood manager is having a go at the fourth official. It's like the game's not even started.
Give
What's he
him a
having a go at him
moment.
about? And like, and then when nine goes up, like the fourth official's just like putting like he's held the board up, he's put it away, he's just turned back around, and Neil Harris's face is like right in his
Yeah,
face
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, like like nine. Do you want to break that
What?
down for me? Yeah,
I
absolute
know.
insanity.
Um. Anyway, we got the job done, as we've said. That's obviously the big positive. We've touched on these things throughout the pod, but I think let's just summarize them again a little bit. The question I've got written down is how much personality and character does making it through a game like yesterday's show? And then I've written reminds me of some of the lockdown season games, which you've already touched on. But let's just combine it with this. Like looking ahead, the next fixtures look so presentable up until the end of February. How big an opportunity is it to make our stamp on the league, and to bring it back to that question, like does that personality and character that we showed yesterday give you an even greater belief that we can do that, because we keep passing these tests, we keep finding ourselves in situations and passing the test every time.
Yeah, it all looks really easy, doesn't it? The C's are like, how to say this in a way that where it can't be clipped up and made to look like a total prat later in the season. The season is kind of laid out perfectly if you were a team that had ambitions of the top three, is what I'll
Yeah,
say. Because
yeah,
the run of fixtures that we've got coming up obviously coincides with the January window, integrating back into the team, not only hopefully one, two, maybe three new signings in January, also coincides with us hopefully getting our best, well, arguably our best player, Adam Mayer, back into the team,
good point.
and Kylian Kouassi as well. And then when the games get harder, you'd like to think we've hit a moment where the squad is stronger, we have more players available, and we're coming into it with confidence, which is quite good and quite a good situation. But we've seen this one before. We've got a game coming up at Harrogate, which, yeah, we took for granted a little bit last time.
What do you mean?
So
Do you mean second bottom of the league,
look,
Harrogate? I can't imagine that'll worry us.
the thing is, there. I think the point I'm making is there will be twists and turns.
Yeah,
League Two is a division where things happen that you don't expect. Teams beat each other all the time that you don't expect to beat each other, and things often don't work out the way you expect them to. That will probably be the case, but at the moment, it does feel like you're licking your lips really, like you're just waiting for the next game to come, and that's a great spot to be in. But yeah, what was it Harris said in his first stint here? I think it was the win the next game mentality.
yeah,
I think that was it.
yeah.
Let's stick with that. Stick with that for now. Let's not
WNG
get too far
mentality.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look. I'll read this run out just if anyone hasn't really looked ahead.
Oh,
It
come on
goes
then. Go
up
on.
until the
Let's.
21st of Feb. It's Tranmere at home, 17th place Tranmere. Shrewsbury at home following that, 20th place Shrewsbury. Oldham away, fair play. That's probably the trickiest one of the lot. 12th place. They've conceded the same amount of goals as us in the league, but still. Harrogate away, as you mentioned, second bottom of the league. Harrogate. Crawley away on a Tuesday night. That's a rearranged game. 22nd place Crawley. Bristol Rovers at home. 21st place. Steve Evans' Bristol Rovers, though. Probably an asterisk on that. Colchester at home on a Tuesday night. They're technically the hardest game. 9th place at the moment, at the time of recording. But at home, with our home form, you probably back us. And then Newport away, who are bottom of the league. So we kind of play the entire bottom five, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we do play the entire bottom five in that run. A few of them at home, three of them at home, and then the relegation two away from home. It is hard not to look at it with genuine, like, well, where are we going to be at the end of that run, Tom? What's your prediction? All right, let me tell you now. Let's try and remember this. 21st of Feb is that Newport game. Where are we going to be at the end of this run?
I've just said about just looking ahead to the next game.
Yeah, and I want you to look ahead at 9 games.
Yeah, okay. Look, what I'll say is if we're a team with genuine top three aspirations, you have to be quite firmly planted in that top three come the end of that run. And I think we probably will be. That's my prediction. Look, like right, we're 2 points off now, and look, I expect by the time that we play MK Dons, which is the game that runs that'll be a top three clash. Both teams will be in the top three. That obviously depends on a few things happening. I'm not too concerned about the MK part of that because they are splashing like it's going out of fashion. On our side, obviously we need to make sure we do our bit. That means January has to go well, and it means we have to not repeat Harrogate away too often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think look, you couldn't want like a more favourable set of games. Yeah, there's a couple of tricky ones in there, but you caveat that by saying that Oldham are difficult to get at, but maybe we can contain them fairly well. And Cole-U, like we beat them earlier in the season. They're the tough games until like late February. I think, if I was a betting man, I'd say we'd be in the top three when MK comes to town.
I do hate the idea of Steve Evans but I imagine resurgent Bristol Rovers by that point coming to town, but you know what they're like. I'm going to steal this little note that Ryan posted in the under the Avistand UTAS chat that's over on our Substack, which is always good fun. Come and join us over there. He said after the game, looking at the bigger picture, 70 points is usually enough for playoffs and 80 points enough for top three. So that's 9 wins for the playoffs and 12 wins for automatic from our 21 games. When you put the equation like that, it doesn't. You've got to win kind of just over half of your remaining games. It doesn't feel that impossible, does it? Really, when you put it as simply as that.
No, so obviously the next 9 we've established the wins already as well.
Yeah, so that's playoffs done.
That's good to see. Yeah, look, I've mentioned it a couple of times. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It's a sort of thing that I like just gets me really het up. I'm not interested in hearing about playoff totals at all, to be honest. We should consider that our absolute minimum, really. Yeah. And look, if we fall just short of the automatics, then it's a nice backup plan, I suppose. But talk to me about the automatic thing, man. Like 12 wins is well achievable with the games that are coming up, with the quality that we've got in our squad. I think that has to be the aim. And yeah, I think it's doable. And again, I guess as with so many conversations you have like this in League Two, there are inevitably 4 or 5 other sets of fans out there saying exactly the same thing. So
for sure.
like it's obviously not as straightforward as it seems, but almost forget the playoffs would be my viewpoint on it. Look a bit higher than that.
Well, a lot of that's going to be determined by what we do in the January window. We'll wrap up on that, Tom. If by the time we record a preview on Thursday.
Well, actually, there is one other bit to dissect from the game at Fleetwood.
Oh, go on. Oh, yeah. I have written it down. Yeah, what, Don Ball's fist bumps?
Scandal.
What is going on there? What's that about? What a way to put a disappointing tinge on a great afternoon.
Yeah, really, it really did. It actually did. Yeah, like because thankfully, the sort of stream stayed on long enough to see it. I was like, "Where's Neil Harris? Where's Neil Harris?" Then Don Ball starts doing them, and they were quite shit.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's one of those where you really appreciate the class of Neil Harris's fist bumps and the technique he's got with them when you see someone else do them.
Yeah,
Harris has got such poise when he does them, such great timing.
Yeah, I mean, like with the greatest of respect, in terms of fist pumps, Don Ball's like a D grade GCSE physics student, and Neil Harris is Robert J. Oppenheimer. So yeah, dropping the bomb sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that has to end. That has to end. I don't want to see this.
No. They were trying to push Gibbons forward for it as well, and he was having none of it. I don't know why Harris just didn't do it. Yeah, no, it's like don't fix what ain't broke.
This is an art that Neil Harris has perfected over several years, and I don't want to see that stopping. To be honest with you, that's his thing.
Leave it to him. Well, look, what I was going to say to wrap the pod up was, if by the time we record a preview, there's no player in the door, will you be having a little swindle type of panic, or will you still be nice and calm?
I don't think I can ever get that panicked. That That guy shits himself when January comes around, and about football as well.
Yeah. Nice, nice, nice.
Uh, well, probably not. To be honest, I think it's pretty clear that we need a bit more of a presence up front. I think that is top of the shopping list. They've made no secrets of that publicly either, in presses and whatnot. I think there's a couple of things, and to consider though. One of them is that we're obviously doing really well at the moment, and that kind of quells a bit of panic. That gives you reassurance that things could still go okay. And again, like the opposition that we're playing isn't anything to be too concerned about at the moment. I also think you'd probably be a little bit more careful at this point. Like in seasons gone by, like you look at the situations that we've been in, and it's been a case of like you just need players in the door like as quickly as possible. Just get them in ASAP because we need something to turn our fortunes around. And we weren't able to do that. And this is a conversation we've had in the past, and we've ended up where we've ended up. This is really different though, because I think you have to be so careful at the moment on who you bring in, how they're going to integrate with the rest of the team. Because there's clearly a really good dynamic, and just not shaking things up too much, really. So I'm not that bothered really. I have more of a confidence as well in the people doing it than I did this time last year or this time the year gone by. So that's the other thing, is I just think we'll be okay. Like we'll like someone will come in. Like we're going to sign at least one centre forward. I'd like to think we'll sign another winger as well. Whether it's by Saturday or not, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm that bothered. I think we should have too much for Tranmere anyway. But yeah, like we do need somebody in at some point.
Yeah, we do. I'd agree with you that I'd rather they get it right than they rush it, because
I think that's exactly it. And it doesn't mean that you can't do good business quickly as well. It doesn't mean that it's impossible to do deals in the first part of the January transfer window, but for obvious reasons it is a harder window to sort of conduct your dealings in. And I get like the flip side of it is like I see like a lot of chat around like you look at like a Crawley, for example. I think they signed like eight,
I think. Yeah, eight
players in January. People are like, well, look at Crawley, they're going. I'm like,
don't look at.
They all look a bit shit. Like they're down the bottom of the league. Like don't worry about it.
They're 22nd in the league. Don't be worried about what Crawley are up to.
Yeah, we just need to add the right presence up top, and I think you'll see our fortunes, well, not change, but get slightly better than they are now, which would be quite good.
Yeah.
And by Tranmere, hopefully, by Shrewsbury, hopefully, but I think the sort of real quiz in this situation is, can you get someone in the door before Oldham? Because I think you've rightly said that that's probably the toughest challenge that we've got because of how difficult they are to break down and score goals against. And I think with our current situation, we'd possibly come up a bit short there. But if you can get someone decent in the door with a bit of a presence, you can get on the end of things, Paul Mullin, you might actually find yourself being able to break that wall down.
Well, Oldham away is nice and local for him as well, so we can maybe tease him in with that.
He loves the Northwest.
He loves the Northwest.
We'll be in Oldham. Yeah.
Well, we are going. We're playing. We've done so many.
We've got Oldham,
games.
Then Harrogate. Harrogate's
Exactly.
not really Northwest. Then we got to Crawley, which is not Northwest. Cambridge is not Northwest. Cambridge is not Northwest. Newport's definitely not Northwest. Southwest, that's 1 out of 2, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, Newport's Wales. He likes Wales.
Accrington,
same sort of thing. Accrington, yeah. So we can
play Salford. We play Salford at home. Does that count?
Yeah. Maybe we could trick him. Just say, yeah, we're playing Salford, home or away. Don't worry about it.
We'll give him a crew as well, so we can guarantee him 3 visits to the Northwest between Oldham away and the end of the season. And that's more than enough for anyone, frankly.
It's hard to turn that down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we shall see. The preview pod obviously will be out Friday morning because obviously it's the Friday show. If you do want to go and have a little look at some potential striking options, some people that we might be looking at, a little scouting report's been done by our statsman Ben Griffiths over on the website on undertheabbeystand.com for coconut tier members. There's also a little piece I wrote about this run of form that we're on and trying to figure out like what the sort of cause of it is, and the answer is don't know, but not to spoil it, it's still worth a read. You've got to be a coconut tier member for both those things. It's £5 a month, basically the price, less than the price of a pint in Cambridge, and you get extra pod content every month, written articles every week, reports and previews of every game. It's a lot for that, isn't it? And do you know what? I'm going to say it now. Jord on Thursday is recording the next UTAS Meets interview with Lionel Perez, which Coconut Tier members will get an extra half hour from. So if that's not going to do it, I don't know what will. But yeah, and obviously go to the Old Spring, One Ferry Path, get yourself a nice skepasti to celebrate 3 points. Lots of deals on for you fans, as you know. Matchday meal deals, 10% off, and happy hour on Saturdays, which if you're breaking dry Jan, maybe early next Saturday, you can go and enjoy a nice happy hour pint. Tom, it's been a pleasure. 3 points again for the U's. Is this ever going to stop?
Fucking hope not. Well, hopefully a bit like stoppage time, it just goes on forever.
Hopefully so. Another 9 games of this would be lovely.